Joining us now on set, Bob Harvey, the president and chief instructor of the South Florida Gun School and training director for Florida Carry and the Florida Carry program. Bill Frady is joining us by phone. He is the host of the popular radio program Locked and Loaded. Bob here in studio and Bill there on the phone. We welcome you both for taking time to be here on America's Forum. Bill, since you're coming to us via telephone, let me go to you first. Are guns really the problem here, or is it something more fundamental?
I think it's something more fundamental. If guns were the problem, crime would not continue to go down as gun ownership explodes. And I believe the gentleman from Florida would probably tell you that people carrying guns is exploding. It's not the law-abiding citizen with a gun that is the issue.
Well, we appreciate your perspective. Bob, would you concur with what Bill has had to say?
Absolutely, Bill. That's a great point. Gun ownership has increased, and violent crime has dropped seriously since we passed our Florida Statute 790 here in Florida. I think the white elephant in the room, and the president didn't want to address this yesterday, and let me tell you what that white elephant is. I was born in 1955, and the state spent at that time $8 billion on mental health issues. $8 billion in 1955.
$1955, is that adjusted for inflation?
That's $1955.
Wow.
The last report from the states in 2006, they spent $32 million. Less than 12% on mental health than what they spent the year that I was born.
So, gentlemen, if I may address this issue, Morgan Thompson, Newsmax contributor for the gentleman on the phone, Bill. Obama, to quote him again, he also said, you know, America, we don't have a monopoly on mental illness, but we do have a monopoly on these sort of problems. So what would you say to that?
I would say that
I would say that's patently untrue.
Okay.
If you look at the top 10 spree killings that have occurred throughout the world, there are 3 from the United States, but the biggest one that ever occurred in 1982 in South Korea, where you had an individual that killed 57 with rifles and grenades before he blew himself up to end the rampage. The number 2 one is out of Australia. The number 4 one is out of Japan. Number 5 is out of Colombia. Number 6 is out of off the West Bank. Number 8 is out of China.
Now, Bill, you mentioned
number
Australia.
10 is out of the UK. So this happens all over the place.
I mean, Australia, I know, had a problem over a decade ago, and they have since enforced very strict gun laws. They haven't had a problem since. So do you think that would be a proper response to this issue?
They did not have a problem prior to that one incident either, and gun crime is exploding in Australia right now.
Well, we've been mentioning President Obama. We heard from him a little bit earlier. Just to reset his most recent comments, let's listen to our president again talking about gun control when it comes to these various acts of violence.
My biggest frustration so far is the fact that this society has not been willing to take some basic steps to keep guns out of the hands of people who can do just unbelievable damage. We're the only society, we're the only developed country on earth where this happens.
Now, the president also said that we should do some soul searching as a nation and should be ashamed of our inability to address gun violence. The president seems to sound one note when it comes to these actions, and it's always about firearms.
Well, earlier, guys, we reported some numbers here on the program. 74 school shootings since the Newtown tragedy, dozens this year alone here. That said, I'm a parent as well as a gun owner, thanks to you, Bob, in part. Bob taught me my concealed weapons class. You want your kids to be safe in school, but you understand it's not, you can't just outlaw guns and make them safe. And in this country, that's proven to be the case, because you look at these incidents, they're happening in all states, all over the country, regardless of what their actual gun laws might be.
Let's talk about that for a second. Where are these things happening? They're happening in gun-free zones. That's what these schools are. Now, this latest shooting out in Oregon, let's take a look at that for a minute. We had a kid go in with a semi-automatic rifle. He wound up killing one child, which is a tragedy, and he shot a gym teacher. The reason there weren't more people dead there is because there were 2 armed security guards at that school. Let's take a look at the last 3 shootings. The one in Seattle, where while the shooter was reloading, this was Seattle Northwest University, he had shot, his gun jammed, he was pepper sprayed and tackled by a civilian. The shooter out in Las Vegas this week killed 2 police officers, went into a Walmart. He was stopped by a concealed carry holder who actually gave his life trying to stop these 2
And
nuts.
Do we want to wait till it gets to that point, though? I mean, it could be worse, yes, but okay, I'm speaking as the only non-gun holder at this table. But why should it get to that point at all? Why does a child have access to semi-automatic weapons? I mean, I'm all for the right to bear and carry arms, but semi-automatic weapons, nobody needs that.
I would say it's a breakdown in the family today.
Well, I would agree
Okay?
with you there.
If their parents don't know they have a gun, then there is a problem. And we have that more often than not. Why does it have to get to that? Do you have a fire extinguisher in your house?
Of course.
Okay. Have you had a fire?
No.
Do we wait to take and arm qualified people in schools until more kids are killed? Is that what we do? What do we do as a nation?
And that's the big question. What do we do by preserving individual rights, but also preserving our freedoms and our lives?
And we mentioned what happened in Las Vegas over the weekend. It is worth noting because it has not received a lot of attention in the mass media. You mentioned it here just a second ago. Joseph Wilcox, who was murdered at that Walmart on Sunday morning, tried to confront the shooters. What did he have? He had a concealed handgun. His uncle, John Wilson, said Joseph wasn't political, but believed in the right to bear arms. This is what his uncle said, quote, he heard the threat to everyone, and he was trying to stop it. He wasn't trying to be a hero. He was trying to do what he thought should be done. Bill, you host the radio program. Should we be highlighting, why does the media stay away from this part of the story?
Because highlighting self-defense would be a very labor-intensive task, because even the CDC concedes that there's up to 3 million defensive gun uses per year. That was one of Obama's executive actions. We don't need another CDC study because we had one published in June. That's 7,000 times, nearly, between 6,500 and 7,000 times a day. 97% of the time, people don't pull the trigger. I pulled my gun twice in self-defense and not had to pull the trigger, which is a great day because there's no crime committed and I don't have to shoot somebody. Nobody carrying a gun wants to shoot anybody. That's not, that's one of the law-abiding citizens. They don't want to shoot somebody. So it happens far more often. James Allen Fox, who is, if you know his work, nobody's going to consider him to be a Second Amendment absolutist, says that these types of shootings are not going up. They get intense media coverage, but they're not going up. What happened in Oregon was a targeted shooting. After he killed that one student and wounded the one gym, he killed the student in the gym, which probably led to him wounding the gym instructor. But then he retreated to the privacy of the restroom to kill himself.
Well, it is worth noting this as well. There are different societies where violence is perpetrated by other means. For example, we have seen so many attacks in communist China, knife-wielding people coming into big crowds of places, and for our British cousins in the UK, where people do not enjoy the rights to handguns. Look at this, 1,000 people a month are victims of knife crime in London. So sad to say, there are people who will turn to violence, and they don't always rely on firearms, as we have that evidence there.
JD, you mentioned Australia before, that they haven't had a gun crime issue. No, but their rape and violent assault is up over 40%
That is a sobering note we will have to keep in mind. This has been a very good discussion, both on the telephone and here in the studio. Gentlemen, we thank you for your input, and now it prompts our question to you. Do you agree with President Obama that there need to be changes, that somehow our society should be ashamed of the Second Amendment and the right to keep and bear arms? Why don't you tweet us your comments at Newsmax TV, hashtag America's Forum. There's also email, connect@newsmaxtv.com, and there is facebook.com/Newsmax. We are coming right back.